All right, Shalom. In this lesson, I'm going to be going into Second Esdras, the fifth chapter, and verses. The point is going to be in verse 42, but I'll say 40, 40, 41, or 40 through 42, or 40 through 42. All right. Um, But before I get going, call halam la Yahweh Bashmi al Shai, Wahara Kakodash, double honor to the hopefully like elder apostles slated to be saved. Lord, willing to start with the men, the elder men at the GMS church on down, and shalom to the rest that may be out here and been out here under the same doctrine. Onward to the Akim here at this faction in the order teaching and giving diligence in all true faith and sincerity. Onward to the rest of the Akim doing likewise, and to the rest of you believers as well. Okay, so these verses regarding this ring verse, which is in verse 42, this ring mention is it's what the elder apostles call an onion. You know, it's very layered, meaning it has a lot of layers to it, like an onion. Now, it's been being brought out by brothers. I don't know why, prematurely with a premature understanding. You know, um, so it hasn't been correctly even explained or brought out in its true meaning. It hasn't been able to due to that. But I don't know what brothers be saying it try to mean, here at this faction, but I don't know. But um I'm doing this because in regard, a brother in regard I'm doing this because a brother he pretty much spoke on this, and I won't say what he said was wrong, but that's not the point of his use of this isn't his use of this wasn't it isn't the actual meaning of this. It's not really regarding what his use of it was. Okay? What this is going into is time. It's going into time. It's going into a few things, and on a level, what he mentioned as well. But this is more so going into time and pretty much the Lord's standing with Israel. Okay? Ultimately, you're going to see. Now, what's going on? To understand these verses, which I'll read, all right, you have to understand what's going on in this chapter, which is what? I'm going to go ahead and read the verses real quick. So this is 2nd Esdras 4, and I'm going to start at verse 40. I'll actually start at, I'll start at 40. No, I'm going to start at 41. It says, "And I said, Behold, O Lord, yet art thou nigh unto them that be reserved to the end. And what shall they do that have been before me, or we that be now, or they that shall come after us? And he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring, like as there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first." And yeah, that's basically it. I believe that's the verses that's usually brought out. But to understand this, what is it saying? Well, to understand it, what you gotta know what's going on in this chapter, right? And what's going on in this chapter is pretty much it's a continuation of a conversation that Esdras is having. All right. Completely. So as I had said, this is going into time. It's going into time, and it's a response to the Lord, the Lord standing with Israel. His regard for Israel, because and how am I able to say that? Because that's what is going on in this chapter. Further, it's at the middle part of Ezra conversing with the angel about, basically Jake, what's going on with Jake, and etc. All right. Now, let's prove this real quick, that this is going into time. And that by the times, I mean pretty much really it's coming down to Esau and Jacob. All right. It's coming down to Esau and Jacob. And pretty much Israel's current state and what they have to come. That's actually what's being spoken to in this, because that's the premise of what Esdras was saying to have brought to him, for him to be spoken to about this, if that made sense. All right. And you know what I want to do? I want to actually, it tell you in this chapter, so I'll jump up. This is Second Esdras 5 and verse. I'm gonna start at I'll start at 31. Now, when I had spoken these words, the angel that came to me the night before was sent unto me, and said unto me, Hear me, and I will instruct thee. Hearken to the thing that I say, and I shall tell thee more. And I said, Speak on, my Lord. Then said he unto me, Thou art sore troubled in mind for Israel's sake. That's what's going on. Lovest thou that people better than he that made them? So he's completely vexed in his mind for what's happening to our people, back then. All right. And to further prove that, because when did the angel come to him? In the 4th chapter. So when you go to Esdras 4, verse 1, and the angel that was sent unto me, whose name was Uriel, gave me answer. Right? Answer to what? What's pretty much what, well, let's go back to the previous chapter. Ezra's complaining about what's going on with Israel. All right? So I'm going to jump down to the point 31. I'm going to start at 30. For I have seen I have seen how thou sufferest them sinning, and hast spared wicked doers, and hast destroyed thy people, which are the Israelites, and which Esdras is of. So he's feeling it too. He's feeling that destruction too, because he's of the Lord's people, and has preserved thine enemies, and has not signified it. I do not remember how this way may be left. Are they then of Babylon better than they of Sion? Or is there any other people that knoweth thee besides Israel? Or what generation has so believed thy covenants as Jacob? So there you go. And you read on. He's just complaining about it, It tell you that in the last verse. You can read through and it's, it doesn't switch up. 36, thou shalt find that Israel by name have kept thy precepts, but not the heathen. So when you go to what? The next verse, the next chapter, what happens? Esdras get responded to. Verse 1, and the angel that was sent unto me, whose name was Uriel, gave me answer. See? He said, thy heart hath gone too far in this world, and thinkest thou to comprehend the way of the Most High? All right. So he was sent to correct Ezra on his thinking, to really comfort Ezra, to let him know what's going on, why is things the way they are, etc. So that's what's happening. So we go back to the 5th chapter, and he's letting them know things that's going to happen, what's going on with Israel, and etc. But all of this is based off Ezra's complaint for pretty much the treatment of Jake, what's going on with our people, in comparison to what's going on with the other people. You know? So I'm gonna jump to the point, I'm gonna jump back down to the scripture, and then I'm gonna jump up so we can understand this. It says what? Verse 40. Yeah. Yeah, I'll start at 41. It says, and I said, 2 Esdras 5 and 41, behold, O Lord, yet art thou nigh unto them that be reserved to the end, and what shall they do that have been before me, or we that be now, or they that shall come after us? And he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring. He's letting him in on what the premise once again is, which is it Ezra's concern for Israel, the treatment of Israel, the destruction of Israel in comparison to the heathen who are completely going off being wicked, right? Even though Jake obviously was too. Now, keeping that in mind when you read this, it wouldn't make any sense for brothers to base this or however they be saying, whatever. When this was brought out by the brother didn't understand what he was bringing out for real. Because when you actually, once again, assess all of that with this and actually further go into the conversation, then you know, okay, what this was talking about, right? But it says, and he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring, like as there is no slackness of the last, even so is there no swiftness of the first. All right? This is talking about time, and we're going to show how. Now, let's just assess something real quick. This is 2nd Esdras 5, and we're going to jump up to get understanding. Okay? Yeah, okay, let's start at verse 27. And among all the multitude of peoples, thou hast gotten thee one people, and unto this people whom thou lovest, thou gavest a law that is approved of all. So you got all the people on the earth, and then you got of those same, you got out of all those people, you got the chosen people, the Israelites, Ezra's people, our people, right? The so-called Blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians. It says, and now, O Lord, why hast thou given this one people over unto many? You're like, what's going on? They, once again, our treatment, his concern is our treatment in comparison to them, who the Lord hasn't even dealt with or he even cares about, which goes on to be said in the next chapter, which is Ezra 2nd, Ezra 6, right? But let's stay on track. It says, and now, O Lord, why hast thou given this one people over unto many? And upon the one root hast thou prepared others. See? And upon the one root hast thou prepared others. So everybody reaping off us. It says, and why hast thou scattered thy one only people among many? And they which did gainsay thy promises and believe not thy covenants and have trodden them down. Right. If thou didst so much hate thy people, why yet shouldest thou punish them with thine own hands? Right. If thou didst so much if thou so much didst hate thy people, yet shouldest thou punish them with thine own hands. He was just upset that we was completely in the other people's hands, being that we're chosen, being that he hasn't, he don't know these people from a hole in the wall. He created them, which is scriptural. You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Amos, the 3rd chapter, tells you that in the first verse. Okay? on down. But it says what? So he's just mad like how these heathens ruling over us. But it says, now when I had spoken these words, the angel that came to me the night before was sent unto me and said unto me, we get to the point, hear me, and I will instruct thee. Hearken to the thing that I say, and I shall tell thee more. So he came back off the original reasoning for why he pulled up on Esdras, which is the same reasoning for why he done pulled up again, because Esdras is concerned with his people, the destruction of his people in comparison to the other people, right? And them were obviously ruling over us. So, and I said, speak on, my Lord. This is verse 33. Then said he unto me, thou art sore troubled in mind for Israel's sake. Lovest thou that people better than he that made them? And these are all the words of the Most High that the angel was sent to tell him. He's telling Esdras, I see what's going on with you. You tripping over Israel, you tripping over Jake. All right, I'm going to answer you. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to let you in on something. But, because you really questioning me. But I'm going to show you something real quick, right? That you might not be ready for, but I'm going to show you so you can be let in while you thinking on the know, while you thinking that this doesn't make any sense, right? But it says, and I said, no, Lord, but of very grief have I spoken. For my reins pain me every hour, while I labor to comprehend the way of the Most High, and to seek out part of his judgment. So there go the judgment. And he said unto me, thou cannot. And I said, wherefore, Lord? He said, you can't seek out part of his judgment, right? And he said, wherefore, Lord? Whereunto what was I born then? Or what? Why was not my mother's womb then my grave, that I might not have seen the travail of Jacob, and wearisome toil, and the wearisome toil of the stock of Israel. Right. We just made the labor. We a homeborn. It's like we a homeborn slave. All that, right? It says all we doing is working in comparison to these other people, right? It says, and he said unto me, number me the things that are not yet come. This is not the angel saying this of his own words. This is what the angel is relaying as to Esdras, being the words of the Most High. Gather me together. He told him, number me the things that are not yet come. How many more prophecies actually got to happen? And not even just the actual prophecies that got to happen, but certain people that got to be here, certain things that got to happen to these particular people as well. Because you got to remember, we not just waiting on the chip. There's a lot of in-between stuff that got to happen too, that got to come. So all of that, you got to tell him this. This is what the Lord telling him to tell him. And he said, what? Gather me together the drops that are scattered abroad. Make me the flowers green again that are withered. Open me the places that are closed, and bring me forth the winds that are in them, that in them are shut up. Shew me the image of a voice. Show me what a voice look like. And then I will declare to thee the thing that thou laborest to know. He said, if you could do that, then I'll let you know part of the judgment, right? If you can do that, right? In a sense, right, if you will. It says, and I said, O Lord, thou that bearest rule, who may know these things, but he that had not his dwelling with men, right? But he that have not his dwelling with men. And who's that? That's the Most High. The Most High dwell with gods. He doesn't dwell with the foolish. The foolish don't stand in his sight. He dwell up there with everyone. Everyone is spiritual completely, right? He's a God. So he's that one, okay? Meaning you the only one that know that. As for me, I am unwise. How may I say then of these things whereof thou speakest? Now here we go. Then said he unto me, and those are the critical points you got to understand this judgment ring part, verses 36 through 37, okay, and then 38. And he says, and as for me, I am unwise. How may I then speak of these things whereof thou askest me? Then said he unto me, like as thou canst do none of these things. He was trying to prove a point to him that I have spoken of. Even so, canst thou not find out my judgment? See that? So judgment just goes into what? Decision, right? A decision given, a sentence given, the decree, right? Let me read it again. Then said he unto me, like as thou canst do none of these things that I have spoken of, even so canst thou not find out my judgment. He was just showing him, in order for you to understand my judgment that you swear you searching out, and you basically saying I'm wrong again, right? Just pretty much just as much. If you can't understand or do none of those things, you can't understand this. So don't question me. He says, or in the end, the love that I have promised unto my people. So basically, the point of what the Lord is trying to get them to see, if you don't, if you can't, you can't do any of these things because you don't know how, right? And also because these certain things you haven't even considered. You see, so it's you don't know how, right? And it's things you haven't even considered. So you can't tell me you can't understand. You can't tell me what I'm doing is wrong. You can't tell me how to do things when he's basically comparing that to his judgment. He knows how, and he's considered all things. You didn't even know an image had a voice. So how can you question me? How can you know my judgment? How can you know part of the judgment? That's why the Lord made Esdras say part of the judgment. He didn't say all of it. You can't even understand part of the judgment. Because why? It's things you don't know how to do, right? You don't know how to do these things. You don't know how to do things, right? You don't know how to do these things. And it's things you haven't even considered that you clearly should. But the Lord knows how to do all these things, and he knows what. He's considered all these things. So that's what goes into judgment. Knowing how, right? And considering things. Having things in consideration. So that's what his point was. So he's like, then said he unto me, like as thou can do none of these things that I have spoken of, even so can thou not find out my judgment, or in the end, the love. That's another part, right? That I have promised, the love that I have promised unto my people. So you don't even understand what's really going on. Now, key word there is love. Key words there are love and promise, which is to his people, being the Israelites. And what's about to be said? And I said, behold, O Lord, yet art thou nigh unto them that be reserved till the end. And what shall they do that have been before me? Or we that be now? Or they that shall come after us? So he's still asking questions, right? And he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring, right? Like as there is no slackness, as I said, that means time. Like as there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. See? So when brothers read this, they say it means circle. It's a circle. He's talking about a circle. But first of all, circle in the Bible. But let me show what it means first. All right? So he says, and he said unto me, I will liken, through the Spirit, I will liken my judgment of Yahweh Shemiel Shah unto a ring, like as there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. So what is he talking about? Esau and Jacob. He's talking about time. Because you can't read, you can't be so quick to read these things in other translations before you understand it in this. Or there's certain ones you don't even want to read in other translations, because it'll help you get the understanding, but sometimes based off the words they use, they might put a word there that completely takes away the 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 pieces you need to understand what's actually being said. You might it dilutes the message, or you might take it in the wrong way. You'll ultimately get an understanding of the verse, but it might not be in the right way, in the right sense. It might be in the wrong sense. For instance, you read this in another translation, it say circle, but that would make sense based off what I'm saying. It mean, but like I said, he gonna liken the judgment unto a ring. So there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. So when you go on and read, I'm just read through. It says, so I answered and said, couldst thou not make those that have been made and be now that are for to come at once, that thou mightest shew thy judgment for the sooner? And it says, then he answered he me and said, the creature may have not above may not haste above the maker, neither may the world hold them at once that shall be therein. Now, this is going into other things that Esdras just is happen to be asking about. Like, he just got a lot of questions, but that doesn't change what the focal point is here, which makes which makes this verse layered. It's an onion. It's a complete onion. Because who's the first and the last, right? So basically, the Lord is telling him, there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. So ultimately, this really don't got nothing to do with the ring and the way brothers take it. This got something to do with the ring. Cause first of all, if it's a ring, it doesn't a ring is continuous. So how could that be? How could this go with that? It could go with that if you understand it's dealing with time. It's dealing with Esau and Jacob, which the Lord has split. When you go to the 6th chapter, it go on and tell you that, right? That's what the next chapter go into, okay? He went on answering him. And the Lord has what? He split the time. That's the dividing apart. That's the parting asunder of the times in verse 7. See that? And when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? And who was that regarding? That was regarding Esau and Jacob. So yeah, Salakia. So as said, this is what this is going into. Like it says right here, the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth, which goes into who? Esau and Jacob, verse 9. 2 Esdras 6 and 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. All right. And there's a lot of little key things that you could also touch on. But we're keeping the premise of what the basis of what Esdras was saying and had been said to him due to what he was saying at your forefront, then you will understand this and its true meaning, and in which it was to be taken, which is the whole reason why it was said. And it just so happens that all the other things that were going on around, he was in the flesh, but he was in the spirit. A lot of thoughts was going on in his head, on in Esdras' head. He ended up that the Lord basically allowed more to come out, and you pick up on more. But the main reason for why he said this, and back in 2 Esdras 5 and 42, I'm gonna actually start at 40 again. Then said he unto me, like as thou canst do. None of these things that I have spoken of, even so canst thou not find out my judgment, or in the end, the love that I have promised my people. And I said, Lo, behold, O Lord, yet art thou nigh to them that be reserved till the end. And what shall they do that have been before me, or we that be now, or they that shall come after? So it's just like what state we gonna be in? What's gonna go on? Like what's going down? He said, I will. He said, he said, I have likened my judgment onto a ring, which is what Esdras and them is dealing with. But it says what in comparison to everybody else. So what's the meaning? Like as there is no slackness of the last, who's the last? Jacob. Who came out last? Jacob. Even so, there is no swiftness of the first. So meaning, though we're last, we're not gonna be missing anything. You know, that's the whole point. Is that it's not gonna be any slackness just because you last. You're not gonna slack on anything. You're not gonna be without anything. But it's also regarding us. So you need to understand that. And it says, even so, there is no swiftness of the first. This once again is denoting what? Time. When it's our time, even though we last, ain't gonna be. It's still gonna be no slackness. You know, it's not gonna be any slackness. Okay, but he said, even so, there is no swiftness of the first. So that's Esau. These heathens, chiefly Esau. Everything comes down to Jacob and Esau, right? Meaning they still have to. They still have to have their time. So the Lord is not to say He's not going to speed the time up, but they still have to have their time. So that's what He mean by there is no swiftness of the first. So just because we were basically told us we're last. That's what this was about. And everybody else over us, before us, as far as ruling, we were set up to rule, but how the Lord would do it, we just wouldn't be first to pretty much partake in that idea, if you will, right? And that don't mean when we get it when it's our time, we're gonna get leftovers. No, that's why the Lord gonna renew everything once it's our time. But we didn't get the first dibs of that idea. These people basically got the what do they call it? The beta version, you know, which is spiritual, the alpha, omega, you know. they not really dealing with the real thing, the best of the best, the first of the first. Because really, when you go into it, the Lord said, "What the first shall be last, and the last shall be first." Because that's another thing that this goes into, which I'll probably speak on in just a second. You know, which is what reincarnation. This does touch on reincarnation, but the Lord is pretty much just telling us this is what His judgment is. But more so, I really want to say it now, which pretty much while reading this is like a promise ring. You know, this is the Lord said His judgment is a ring, because when you read this in other translations, it says a crown. So that and ring was used to denote what commitment. All right. But let's do less talking and go ahead and hit these scriptures. I want to keep this under in the 30-minute mark, Lord will. So what I'm gonna do now is we're gonna read on, and then I got a couple other scriptures, and that'll be it to show this is not talking about a circle, if you will, in a sense. That's not the initial meaning, right? This is layered. That's not the point of what he was saying. But that sense is there. Just like in Job, a lot came out through distress. A lot of things is realized through distress. That's the Lord allowed Esdras to do all of this for. But the point of why he said this is denoting what is in response to, is concerning the status, the condition of the Lord's people in comparisons to the others. But the Lord said the Lord told Esdras through the angel that, I made them. You think you love them more than me? You can't find out my judgment. or in the end, the love that I have promised unto my people. So he said his judgment is like unto a ring. See that? Like as there is no slackness of the last, right? Even so there is no swiftness of the first. You know? Period. So we gonna have it all. Even though we last, we're not gonna be wanting for anything. But once again, this going into time. The Esau, these heathens, they gotta have their time. Ain't gonna be no swiftness, if you will, of it. That's just what he means by it. They have to have their time. So I answered and said, couldst thou not make those that have been made and be now, and that are far to come at once, that thou mightest shew thy judgment the sooner? Then answered he me and said, the creature may not haste above the maker, neither may the world hold them at once that shall be created therein. Because the judgment ultimately is what? At the last, we ain't gonna be slack. And these people that's ruling now, they ultimately not gonna, be in the way no more. But it's all time. It's all time. And that's exactly what I believe I got it pulled up. When you go into a wedding ring, the symbolism of wedding ring, it says the symbolism of a wedding ring is closely tied in with the symbolism of its shape, a circle. But listen, throughout history, circles have been used as a metaphor for concepts of totality, wholeness, perfection, right? It says the self-infinity, right? Eternity and what? Timelessness. Timelessness. Okay? And they're what? Symbols of love and what? Eternal love, which eternal goes into what? Time. See? And you go into by giving an engagement ring, you are promising that you will love and remain devoted to one another throughout all of time, which is why when he used the ring, because the ring keep going, but he used the ring because it represented the time, meaning he was giving a response to what Esdras was concerned with, the times that we were in, the heathen up over us, we getting our tail why, like he going and saying that's why the sixth chapter say what it says, like if the earth be made for our inheritance, the world, which is what that word world goes into, translates to the earth. Why do we not have yet an inheritance? And but that's at the end of what he will go on and say at the end of this chapter, after the end of this chapter, which is the chapter this judgment ring thing is in, mentioned. See, which was what mentioned in the 42nd verse, and this chapter only goes to 56 verses. So it's just a few more things that goes on and be said. And guess what? Guess what's mentioned in it when you go on to read? It says, Second Esdras 5 and 43, right? It says, so answer I. Well, we read that already. It says, then answer me. Well, really, I'll read on 43. So I answered and said, couldst thou not make those things that have been made and be now, and that are for to come at once, that thou mightest shew thy judgment the sooner? Obviously, the judgment will be good. See, it represents good. It's not just judgment in the sense of just coming back to the earth, you just getting jacked up. But it's not talking about that. That wasn't the point. That wasn't the premise of this. It's going into that too, because this is an onion, but that wasn't the point of this. So, because why would he be asking for the judgment if the judgment which this was taken and understood to mean is what Esdras was talking about, or dealing with? If this judgment, right, that's understood, this ring of judgment is what it was understood to be by brothers, which is you coming back, it's about, et cetera, et cetera. Which, as I said, once again, this does go into two. But if this was that, why would Esdras be asking for judgment? Which wouldn't make any sense because he's complaining about judgment. So the judgment ring mentioned was concerning what? time, our time when we, are ruling. So this is what this judgment is going into. But anyway, then answered he me and said, the creature may not haste above the maker, neither may the world hold them at once that shall be created therein. So he just ended up answering more of what Esdras was asking. But the point and premise the point of that judgment ring, his judgment likened unto a ring, does not change, nor the premise of why all this is being said, which is the concern of Israel's treatment in regard to everybody else. The times Israel got to deal with versus everybody else's time. See that? So it says, and I said, all right, so I'm over 30, but it's all through the spirit, man. So when you read on, it says, where am I at? Yeah, verse 45. And I said, as thou hast said unto thy servant, that thou which givest life to all hast given life at once to the creature that thou hast created, and the creature bear it, even so it might not now also bear them that now be present at once. And he said unto me, ask the womb of a woman. See, he's talking about a woman now. And say unto her, if thou bringest forth children, why doest thou it not all together, but one after another? Pray her therefore to bring forth 10 children at once. Now this is talking about the earth, but it says, and I said, she cannot, but must do it by distance of time. Then said he unto me, even so have I given the womb of the earth to those that be sown in it in their times. For like as a young child may not bring forth the things that belong to the age, even so have I disposed the world which I created. And I asked and said, seeing thou hast now given me the way, I will proceed to speak before thee. For our mother, of whom thou hast told me that she is young, draweth nigh unto age. He answered and said, ask a woman that beareth children, and she shall tell thee. Right? Say unto her, wherefore are not they thou hast now brought forth like those that were before thee, but of less stature? And she shall answer thee, they that be born in the strength of youth are of one fashion, and they that be born in the time of age when the womb felleth are otherwise. So this also dealing with what? When people come back. But it says, consider thou therefore also how that ye are how that ye are less of stature than those that were before you. Even so, they that come after you, less than ye, as the creatures which now begin to be old have passed over the strength of youth. Then said I, Lord, I beseech thee, I have found favor in thy sight. Shew thy servant by whom thou visit thy creature. And once again, when you go to the what? To the next chapter. Hold on. Am I there? Yeah, kind. This still verse Slaki. This is still chapter 5. It just say chapter 6. Now when you go to the next chapter, what goes on and said and it said to Ezra. And he said unto me, in the beginning, when the earth was made, before the borders of the world stood over, or ever the winds blew. You read on. And he said, what? It's talking about the times, man. He told him that's when he considered all these things, before everything was made. The things you just now considering and things you actually missing that are to be considered. I considered all these things. And he says, what? He said, and they all were made through me alone and through none other, but by me also they shall be ended, and by none other. Then, right, like a ring. But this is going into what? Time. Then answered I said, what shall be the parting of asunder of the times, which is the ring. So if it's a ring, it's a split ring. He parted the ring. He parted the ring. Meaning he divided times, because if the ring, which is something that's usually that completely goes around. There's no ending or no beginning. So it's hard to say. It would be impossible to say that, well, for me, like I'm saying, the ring is talking about the times from Esau to Jacob. You know, it would be hard for that to be the case if the ring was a continuous one. So what the Lord do? He will part the ring. Like you have those rings that have closures. I mean openings. Okay, they got openings. So lock it. Let me see something real quick. A split. Slock it. Basically, you look up a split ring. I had already had this pulled up. You know, when you get a split ring, basically, a split ring, man, a ring that go around your hand. All right, but anyway, he parted the ring, man. He parted the ring because in that ring once again clearly, due to what they went on and said and talked about was time, the note in time symbolizing time, but on a spiritual level, a promise to his people, to his woman. I've likened my judgment that I've given you, on another level unto a ring. So anyway, but to stay on the time level, it says, what? Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times, right? Because it's just going around and around. Or when shall the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Jacob, unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Isaac's hand held first the heel of Esau, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So there it is. So all that's just simply talking about time, And then when you go on a further level, but concerning Esdras' concern for the Lord's people, or status or condition or treatment and times they were living in comparison to everyone else's, starting with being the heathen, chiefly starting with Esau, Edom. See, so that's all it was about. But ultimately, he says what? Verse and back in 40. Then said he, this the next level. Then said he, you know what? And let me get this too. When you go to time, right? Because remember, that's what a ring can symbolize: eternity, timelessness, infinity, right? Now, when you go into time, time says the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, and future regarded as a whole. And it was something else too. But pretty much, that's what it was. When you go look this word indefinite up, lasting for an unknown or unstated length of time, unknown, unlimited. So really, that's how it is perceived to us. We ain't gonna be able to do nothing about it. That's why he said, by me these things were created, and by me shall these things be ended. So going into what? The parting. He's gonna part the time, but we don't know exactly the time frame. But we're considered. You know what I'm saying? We got our time, and these heathens they're gonna have their time. And obviously their time is to be first. And it ain't gonna be no swiftness of the first. They gotta have their time. But so that will make us last. But even though we're last, there's not gonna be any slackness. We're not gonna want for nothing. That's why I talk about that in Romans the 8th chapter. The sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared. Let me just get it real quick. So because now this should start to make sense, in Romans, the 8th chapter. You know, this is Romans 8 and 18. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time, right, are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. For the earnest expectation of the creature, waited for the manifestation of the sons of God. So there it is, man. You know, and you read, this is exactly what Esdras was dealing with. You know, that's exactly what he was dealing with. Okay. Now, he answered him, man. Now, when you go back to, so yeah, that's what indefinite means. It's not clearly expressed or defined. No man know at the time. Yahweh Shah told us that in Acts, the 1st chapter and the 7th verse. And he said unto you, it is not for you to know the, I'm actually starting at 6. When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, what wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? And he said unto them, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. Exactly. That's that indefinite time. So when he said it's going to be like a ring, that's how it seems. Because a ring just go around and around and around. But it's a ring that he will part, you know, you'll have an opening to it. So, and judgment is involved in that. So the point of that wasn't to have the focal point as judgment regarding when we sit down, and really that thing just going round and round and round just until a point in time, you know, because we are part of that constant die and come back, and you know that cycle, you know, which goes round and round and round. So that's why I go into that too. But that wasn't the major focal point of it. That wasn't the point of what it was, of why it was said to Esdras. The point of why it was said to Esdras was the premise of what he was talking about. He was concerned with, you know. So that's basically that. Okay. Now, when you look at it in the spirit, the Lord is basically saying what in 2nd Esdras 5 and 40. Then said he unto me, like as thou canst do none of these things that I have spoken of, even so canst thou not find out my judgment. Or in the end, you can't figure it out because it's like a ring, you know, it's like a damn ring, you know. But is it a ring in regards to of the circle? That's where brothers off at. That ain't the necessarily thing to be focused on. It's just a circle. The Lord is a reason why he said that. He said because this is how we gonna see it. This is how things gonna seem. It's gonna keep going around and around and around. But there's an end. How would that be without splitting it? Right? Or in the end, the love that I have promised unto my people, which is a what? Part of that ring. And a part of that ring is judgment. But he said, and I said, behold, O Lord, yet art thou nigh unto them that be reserved till the end. And what shall they do that have been before me, or what they or we that be now, or they that shall come after us? We just gonna keep going through this. And he said unto me, I will liken my judgment unto a ring. This is how you should look at it. Like as there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. So it's like he's giving this ring, this judgment, this is what it is. To the judgment we dealing with is confirmation of the Lord being committed to us. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much it. You know, pretty much it as far as the intent. So when you go into how I seen it, it was like a promise ring, this thing that Jake got in the world. And then when you look at it, it's spiritual because they got, you know, the infinite on it, which this is synonymous with Yahweh, because Yahweh name, you know, The numerical value of Yahweh is 8, and that's why the 8 symbol is this, because it just keep going. It's infinite. See, so that's why he said I'm gonna like it. That's spiritual. That you put in promise ring, and then this what you get. But that's what a ring was. That's the part. That was the purpose of a ring. Like that's the purpose of why a woman or man wears a ring. It's nothing that can end it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's supposed to be infinite. It's a soul tie. But it says a promise ring signifies a promise to take the relationship seriously. It also symbolizes hope for the relationship's future development. It does not promise marriage, however, like engagement rings do, but that's not nothing to be concerned with. Okay? But it says a promise ring, sometimes known as a pre-engagement ring, is given in a relationship to signify commitment. While many young couples for many young couples, a promise ring means a vow of an engagement ring, which the Lord said you got to keep your vow, right? He a man of his word, so he going to keep his vow, right? Others may simply use it to show their loyalty and devotion to their partner. And the Lord says what? Jeremiah 3. Get 6 first. Jeremiah 6:2. I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman. You go to Jeremiah in the 3rd chapter. It says, that's one I can get it. Pretty much this just showing that the Lord is he's married to Israel. But this ain't the one I want to get. Let me get 3 and 14. It says what? Turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord. Jeremiah. This is Jeremiah 3 and 14. Saith the Lord, for I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city and two of a family, and I will bring you to Zion. So when was the ring? Boom. Where's the ring? Judgment. See that? Like how we're his sons based off the chastisement. See that? He's committed unto us. How do we see it? Because he actually punishes us for when we go to hell off. If he weren't committed to us, he wouldn't care. You could do what you want to do. She can be wherever she want to be. It don't matter. So this is what the point of this. Now, also, when you go into this, because I believe I touched on everything, and then at the end of what I want to do, I want to show how this isn't talking about, the it wasn't just because it's a circle to go back around. This just happens to be what it also, this, based off the things that Esdras said, this happened to also give some more insight on judgment. For instance, when it says the last and the first, in that regard, that goes into people coming back. So that's why he says, he's talking about the 51. He answered me and said, ask a woman that beareth children, and she shall tell thee, say unto her, wherefore, because remember, Esdras asked about the people before him and the people after. But this is what Esdras had to understand. So the Lord said what? He told him to ask a woman that bear children. Because he like, can't you just bring everybody here? Because he understood, obviously, how judgment worked in that regard. So he couldn't, so he couldn't have really been concerned with that. It was about something else. But nonetheless, it was something he didn't understand about it. But it says, say unto her, or the purpose of that, I should say, wherefore are not they whom thou hast now brought forth like those that were before, as he says, right? But less of, so those that are now brought forth is people during like the time of now, and the people that were before were the people before us or the people before him, right? So he said, why? So the people that's now, they're of less stature, like they're weak. in comparison to the people before. But that he was getting his question answered right there. That's why they not here. You talking about why can't you bring them now? It says what? And he shall say, and she shall answer, they that be born in the strength of youth are of one fashion, and they that are born in the time of age, right? When the old time, right? That was the strength of the youth when the earth was young, right? So you had people around that was in their strength. And as time progressed, the earth got weaker, iniquity increased. You know, it was more wicked people on each side, and then the people got wicked. So it all matches. So that's why you're not going to necessarily have everybody here at one time. You're going to have everybody here at one time, but it won't work like that. When everybody's here at one time, people going to come out of the graves, you know? Like you ain't going to have, that's why you don't have everybody on the earth at the same age. But that's a whole nother thing. But that's how you know this wasn't, what I'm talking about now is, this is how you know this wasn't talking about this regard. This wasn't a focal point. Because none of the scriptures around it, I ain't gonna say none of them, because when you go to second Esdras, when you get to the 7th chapter, it focuses once again on the focal point, which is this is the condition of the battle. You gotta go through this to get this. That's that promise ring. So that's why he said, I have likened my judgment unto a ring. That's the commitment. This is proof that you gonna get it, but you gotta go through it and have it to get it. You have to get this one to get that one, right? But also it goes on to talk about how Adam, he sinned and etc., which is why I'm bringing this out. But that was of less, I ain't gonna say of less, it was of less, that wasn't a focal point, I'll put it like that. And that's how you know this is an onion thing. But it says what? And they that are born in the time of age when the womb felleth, that's the earth, are otherwise. Consider thou therefore how that ye are less of stature than those that were before you. He's like, so basically he was more so talking, he was comforting him, he was giving him edification. He was like, you just weak. He was like, y'all, you feel like this because the times are weak, because you're weak. But guess what? The times are weak. But that's why those people you concerned with aren't here, and they're not gonna be here. This is a scripture that keep coming to mind that for the weak are weak, for the you do good are things good. You know, I forget what scripture that is. I think that's in Esdras, if I'm not mistaken. So you're not gonna have people that were of the righteous time here, like, and you know, experiencing things the same way. Like everybody gonna be here on earth, but this is the thing, how and why, and then you got to consider if you're gonna think about how. Well, ask this question: why would the Lord have people coming out of the graves? Why would there be people in the graves? How long would those people been in the graves? Because remember, you come back every 3 or 4 generations. You see? So that grave was there for about 60 years. Somebody was in that grave for 60 years. People that's been dead for like 60 years. You know? 60, 80 years. You know? People from almost 100 years ago. That's how you're going to end up having everybody here when that judgment comes. To see Yahweh come back and Israel's time being up. You know? We ain't slacking on nothing anymore. So that's basically the point. Okay, now to show that this wasn't necessarily even talking about a ring, well, I mean a circle. First of all, the word circle is in the Bible. So when you go to Isaiah 40 and 22, he that sitteth upon the circle, right? He that sitteth upon the circle. Then when you go into the word circle, it means what? Circuit, vault, and the circuit is just a line or a boundary around something, or what? Yeah, or it says movement around some slocking, movement around something. The earth makes a circuit around the sun, so it's just a movement around something, right? So a boundary line or an area. That's just what circuit means. Now, that's not in the Apocrypha, right? But nonetheless, you have them. You have dimensions in the Apocrypha, which we gonna get, and I'm gonna close out. This is Iraq 43, and we're gonna go to the 12th verse. Okay, and it says, it compasseth the heaven about with a glorious circle. So the word circle is used. See that? The word circle is used. So the Lord, he was what? He was making a point. And the point was what? Uh, the point was it being about, hold on, what is this? It's in the 4th chapter. A ring. The Lord's love for his woman, his people. Okay? So that's it, man. That's really it. All right, where is that at? Yeah, 42. So I have likened my judgment unto a ring. But that's in the Apocrypha. Which brothers say, well, that's circle. But here go the word circle. You know? That's the word circle. So if the Lord wanted to use circle, he would have used circle. And we're going to get, one more witness. This is from Solomon, Wisdom of Solomon, 13. And we're going to go to verse 2. And it reads what? I'm actually start at 1. Surely vain are all men by nature, who are ignorant of God, and could not, out of the good things that are seen, know him that is. Neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster, but deemed either fire or wind or the swift air or the circle of the stars. So that word circle is completely a word that's used. So if the Lord really meant circle, right, in 2 Esdras 4:5 and 42, and he said unto me, all like my judgment unto a ring, he would have said circle, if he meant circle. But a ring is a circle. But you wasn't supposed to understand it like that. That wasn't the point. This is going into the times of Esau and Jacob, right? And the Lord's commitment to his woman. You can't love that which is talked about in 40. Then said he unto me, like as thou canst do none of these things that I have spoken of, even so thou cannot find out my judgment, or in the end the love that I have promised unto my people. And he said unto me in verse 42, I will liken my judgment unto a ring, like as there is no slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. What the hell I got to do with a ring? So it's just that simple. Only way that could be is if the ring was parted. But then when you go into parting, which is mentioned in the 2nd chapter, is regarding the time. So this ring just represented time, which is why I once again had time pulled up. And when you go into the symbolism of a wedding ring, it represents what? Time, timelessness, infinity, right? But that was just seeing it, basically speaking to how we gonna see things. It may look like it's gonna keep going forever, but it ain't like that. I'm a part of it. Okay. So yeah, that's basically it. I believe I touched on everything. So Lord willing, you've been edified. believe I touched everything. And another thing they give you when you read that verse, what was that? I think that was second Esdras. I might do another part to this, because I said it is a layer. It is a layered thing, man. Let's see. I believe that was 32. Yup. That slackness of the last, even so there is no swiftness of the first. That goes into 1 Thessalonians 4:15. Those that have died in Hamashiach. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. So that's another layer that this is going into, that first and the last. Because really, I'll say it in the last one. The next one I may do, Lord willing, through the Spirit, is telling you that obviously the first people are really the last. The Lord, He can't give something. I think it say that in this chapter. He can't give something to people that's not for them. But that's a whole nother thing. So I don't want to even draw this out even further. So that'll probably be the second layer to this. Might call this onions. Second Esdras 5:40 through 43 or something like that. So Lord willing, you better be edified. Did not get the word circle. I'll just make sure I got that word circle. So yeah, it's clear. Move all the way around something, especially more than once. So I go into that too. But once again, keeping the premise at the front is that, it's not that. That wasn't the point. That wasn't that ain't the meaning, the ultimate meaning you're supposed to understand. So call halam like Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai wa Hawa Shalom.